Okay, with this video, we're going to do part 3. It's just going to show you another method of doing the same thing. Okay, first, basically, we know already now that we can go into the alpha channels and grab something in here. Usually, when I use the alpha channels, it's when I have something that's organic, like feathers, hair, foliage, little speckled dots. If you have something that's real simple sky like this blue and it has its own color, it's pretty straightforward. This is one of those times where you could just use your magic wand because I don't have a lot of holes to poke through, meaning blue is showing through all these different little spots. The only negative space is really right here in the foot. So if I click here, that pretty much grabs the blue there, and I can hold shift, and I mean right there it pretty much grabs everything. Okay, so for me, it's like if you have something like this is a no-brainer. Why would I go do channels and go through all that work? So you don't always have to use the channels to do this, but there are times when you will want to use it. This is not one of them. This is where you would just, again, I'm on layers. Actually, when I did this, I used magic wand and I just hold shift, and then pretty much now. Here's the only thing I want to point out. If I were to do Command J, I selected the blue sky. Okay, it's because I selected the blue sky, that's what's going to be isolated. Okay, so I would have to invert my selection. Okay, you'll see select, inverse. Now it's just the object here. Then I could do two things. I hit the layer mask down here, and it isolates the background. Or Command Z, I can do Command J. Okay. So either way, you should be fine. So let me go grab that same sky. Okay, so it's already ready for me. Copy. I will now paste. Put it behind. And then here, usually I don't blow things up larger, unless I'm going to do a digital paint over the texture, but typically, let me just show you. And I'm stretching it all out of proportion, but I just want you to see. So let's say if I had something like this, put the light a little bit lower. Okay, so now I have a different sky. Okay, so we had this originally, now I have a different image. Now, the next thing in this whole process is you would start manipulating color to blend into the environment. So I'm just showing you guys photographs right now, right? But we've been painting in class. So essentially what you're going to see now is if I were doing a painting and I had a painting pretty much blocked in already and it's all the way to finish, but I have to change the background either because I don't like the background or a client asks you to change it. If you saved alpha channels throughout the painting process, you will always be able to reverse what you've done, reverse the painting process and drop in something new. And then you'll be able to use curves and things like that to manipulate it. So, but let me show you a quick way how you can try to change color. So I highlight the layer that I'm on here, okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do is, this works sometimes, not all the time, but I always try it. I always go Image, Adjustments, and then I go down to Match Color. How this works is Photoshop is going to grab a file, okay, and then it's going to match your color to that file, and you can even go to the particular layer on that file. So for example, I believe this was my photo layer, okay, or just the photo of this, okay, and you'll see it immediately turned this image and starts introducing that color onto my statue. Okay, the file that I'm working on now, I believe this is it right here. Okay, so you'll notice it's blue. Okay, but if I come in here and change this to what layer, it says layer 2 over here. So I go layer 2, it's just start blending in that color onto my image. And so what you'll see, this automatically gives me a great start for trying to blend and merge this together. And again, this works for your digital paintings as well as photography. Okay, so these sliders up here, just so you can see, okay, this is light, luminance is your light. Okay, you can lighten or darken. Okay. Color intensity is pretty straightforward. It's like hue saturation. You want it bright or not. That's straightforward. And you got your fade, which basically allows you to fade. It's your tolerance slider of how much it's going to overpower, overrun the image underneath. So if you don't want it to just go pure color, you can fade it in. Okay. So that's essentially what you're going to be dealing with here. So if I had this, okay, I'll turn the preview on and off so you can see what I have. Now, this already, without doing much work at all, feels really close to blending into each other. Okay, so let me go to the other file, for example. Okay, so let's try it on this one. Okay, so same image. I go Image, Adjustments, Match Color. Okay, so what image am I using? I believe it's this one. And what layer? I believe it's 2. But look at the difference. On this one, it didn't just blend in and make it look good. It's super high saturate and high key. This happens sometimes, okay, depending on the image. I said I always try it. It doesn't always work. So if it doesn't work, you know, that's when I have to start trying to find other ways. I can try playing with the fade. You can try hitting neutralize, all these different things. But to be honest with you, this probably is not going to work. I can bring the color intensity back, right? But the way the luminance is killing it in here, it's just making it far too blown out. It's manipulating this in a way that's not conducive to what you want. So what would I do? I would hit cancel, and then typically how I work is I usually use adjustment layers here. If you'll notice, there's a bunch of adjustments. They're the same ones that you're going to see up here, okay, for the most part. The one that I typically use is curves. It's Command M. Over here, there's no keyboard shortcut for it. But actually, I'll do it up here so you guys can see it a little bit more in a more clean way. In class, I'll show you why I use the adjustment layers. But okay, so if I hit curves, okay, so when I have this, how this works is you're not going to try to well, you can manipulate the value of the photo, okay, just on the RGB channel. You know, if I wanted to go darker, so it feels a little bit more backlit like this, that's one thing. Then you can go into the actual channels, okay, red, green, and blue. Remember how over here in those channels, it's red, green, and blue? We're going to actually manipulate each one of those to change the color. So I'm on the red channel, so it's actually going to manipulate this red channel, okay? So if I go up, what does it do? It adds more red. If I go down, it takes the red out, okay? So you would basically go to each one of these channels and start manipulating. Okay. So when you're working in channels, it takes time to get used to, but the way I like to think of it is this. When you have this line, when it says green, if you go up beyond that line, it's going to add more green. Again, you go down, it takes it out. If it's red, you go up red. And so whatever that color is, it's the top part. And when we go to the bottom, it's taking it out. Okay. Okay, so now I'll try blue. Do I want a little bit more blue in there? Pull the blue out. So it takes time. This is not one of those things you can just knock out really fast. You have to play around with it to get it just right. Pump up the blue a little bit to kill it a little bit. Go back to the green to neutralize a little bit more. So let's say I would go something like this. Click OK. Alright, so if I Command Z, you'll see where it was, and now you see where it's at. Okay, so pretty much this is, again, one part of now getting it to blend in. And again, I could go back to curves again, start manipulating this and getting it darker. Now, just as a general rule, I kind of mentioned it already. If you're doing a real complex image, I almost always use adjustment layers. And that would be down here. And just so you can see, with the curves, it'll pop up a little window. It's essentially the same thing. It's just in a small window that's always going to show up in the properties palette. And so if I wanted to come in, it's basically going to show in your layers down here. This icon right here, if you double tap, is always going to come up to this. And then here's your layer mask, okay? And so basically what this is I can come in and manipulate the color. The beauty of adjustment layers and why I typically use this versus the adjustments up top is because these will stay here. I can go to a different layer, go manipulate, and then when I come back, the points are still there. You didn't degrade the image quality, and you can always play around with the image, the adjustment layer. And then even if I don't like it, I could turn it on, turn it off. I can get rid of it. Also with this layer mask, it's showing white. But if I actually came in with a paintbrush, just so you can see, and if I wanted to, by using black as my color, if I didn't want all this color back here, make sure I have my brush. See this? My brush is set to overlay. That's one thing I almost forgot in the previous video. Always turn your brush right back to normal because when you're ready to paint, it may not function properly. Okay? So basically what this is doing is it's showing the color that was underneath prior to this adjustment layer. It's just exposing it underneath. All right. And if I really wanted to get that to be knocked out, I would just hold Command, put my cursor right over this layer underneath because it has the pixel information. And I could come up here and I could basically fill with white. And then I'm going to do invert selection and then fill with black. And now basically I can make this bottom darker without affecting the sky. Okay? So hopefully this is going to get you started. This is really important fundamental stuff because when we go further in to the full-on landscape paintings and things like that, it'll be really important. It'll be very useful, especially when we're doing photo textures if you decide to do that. It's not required, but I'm going to show you guys how to manipulate it. And it kind of corresponds with matte painting.